The gun pressed against Emma's temple as tears streamed down her face. "Please," she whispered, "my daughter." Before she could finish, a shadow moved behind her captor. It was him, the quiet janitor she'd barely noticed for years, now moving with the precision of someone with a dangerous past. Their eyes met for just a second, and he mouthed two words that would change everything: "Don't talk." If you're wondering how a Fortune 500 CEO ended up at the mercy of corporate saboteurs, and how the unassuming single father who cleaned her office became her unlikely savior, you'll want to stay until the very end of this incredible story. Like and subscribe now to make sure you never miss our most gripping true stories of ordinary heroes who changed lives forever. Emma Reeves straightened her tailored blazer as the elevator climbed to the executive floor of Meridian Technologies. At 38, she had achieved what most considered impossible, becoming the youngest female CEO in the company's 70-year history. The board's decision 3 years ago had been controversial, but Emma had silenced critics by increasing profits by 27% and launching 2 revolutionary product lines. What no one saw were the cracks forming beneath her polished exterior. Her marriage had collapsed under the weight of her ambition, leaving her to raise 8-year-old Lily alone. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd mastered running a billion-dollar corporation but struggled to make it to her daughter's school events. "Good morning, Ms. Reeves," her assistant chirped, handing her a steaming cup of coffee as she strode through the office. "The quarterly reports are on your desk, and the board meeting has been moved to 11. Emma nodded, barely registering the man mopping the floor near her office, just another face in the background of her busy life. Daniel Carter worked methodically, keeping his head down as the executives passed. At 42, he had accepted his invisible status at Meridian. The night shift janitor position wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and, more importantly, allowed him to be home when his 12-year-old son, Max, returned from school. Few at Meridian knew that Daniel had once been Lieutenant Daniel Carter, decorated Navy SEAL with specialized training in counterintelligence. Fewer still knew about the classified operation that had gone catastrophically wrong, leaving 3 of his team members dead and Daniel with a dishonorable discharge that he couldn't fight without revealing state secrets. Now, he cleaned floors and emptied trash cans, finding dignity in honest work and purpose in being present for Max after his wife's death from cancer 4 years earlier. The boy was all he had left. "Hey, Carter," his supervisor called out. "Need you to stay late tonight. Some big presentation tomorrow, and they want the executive floor spotless." Daniel nodded, already calculating who could watch Max. His neighbor Mrs. Patel had offered before, and Max liked her cooking. One more late night wouldn't hurt if it meant keeping this job. Emma stared at her computer screen, the numbers blurring before her tired eyes. It was nearly midnight, and she was still at the office, preparing for tomorrow's presentation to potential investors. Lily was staying with her grandmother, probably already asleep, unaware that her mother had missed tucking her in for the 3rd time that week. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Sorry to disturb you, ma'am," Daniel said from the doorway. "Just need to empty your trash." Emma waved him in without looking up. "Go ahead." As Daniel bent to retrieve the wastebasket, Emma's phone rang. The caller ID showed unknown, but she answered anyway, expecting it to be the international investors she'd been courting. "Ms. Reeves," a digitally altered voice greeted her. "I believe you've discovered our little adjustment to the Meridian financial reports." Emma's blood ran cold. Earlier that evening, she had indeed found discrepancies in the quarterly reports, millions siphoned through a complex web of transactions that would have gone unnoticed by less meticulous eyes. "Who is this?" she demanded, unaware that Daniel had paused his work, instantly alert to the tension in her voice. "Someone who stands to lose a great deal if you reveal what you found," the voice replied. "The board meeting tomorrow would be an unfortunate time to bring this up. For you and your daughter." The mention of Lily sent ice through Emma's veins. "If you threaten my child." "We're not threatening, Ms. Reeves. We're simply suggesting you consider all stakeholders before making hasty decisions." Your predecessor understood the arrangement. The line went dead, leaving Emma shaking. Her predecessor's sudden retirement had always seemed strange, a man at the peak of his career stepping down for personal reasons. She looked up to find the janitor still in her office, watching her with an intensity that seemed out of place. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Daniel asked, his voice carrying a steadiness she hadn't noticed before. "Fine," she snapped, embarrassed at being caught in a vulnerable moment. "You can go." Daniel hesitated, then nodded and left with the trash. But instead of continuing his rounds, he positioned himself in the hallway, listening. 20 years of military training had taught him to recognize a threat when he heard one, and every instinct told him the CEO was in danger. The next morning, Emma arrived at the office earlier than usual, dark circles under her eyes concealed by expensive makeup. She'd spent the night reviewing the financial discrepancies, uncovering a sophisticated embezzlement scheme that implicated at least 2 board members and the CFO. Her office door opened without a knock, and CFO Richard Harmon entered with board members James Wilson and Victoria Zhao. "Emma, we need to talk before the meeting," Richard said, his usual smooth demeanor replaced by thinly veiled hostility. "I was about to call you," Emma replied, maintaining her composure. "There are some concerning irregularities in the quarterly reports." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's precisely what we wanted to discuss. There's been a misunderstanding. $300 million diverted through shell companies is quite a misunderstanding," Emma said, watching their reactions carefully. James closed the door. "Emma, you've done remarkable work here, but you're out of your depth. This arrangement predates your appointment." "It's embezzlement," Emma stated flatly. "It's business," Richard countered. "The board approved these allocations years ago. Your predecessor understood the necessity." "Necessity of theft?" Emma's voice rose. Victoria leaned forward. "Think of your position, Emma. Your reputation. Your daughter." The threat hung in the air between them. "The board meeting starts in 20 minutes, James said. "We trust you'll present the reports as prepared, without your creative interpretations." After they left, Emma sat frozen at her desk. They had been explicit: keep quiet or face consequences that would extend beyond her career to her child. She reached for her phone to call security but hesitated. How deep did this corruption go? Who could she trust? Daniel arrived for his shift early, unable to shake his concern after overhearing Emma's phone call the previous night. He'd spent hours researching Meridian Technologies, finding troubling patterns in their financial reports that his military intelligence background helped him decode. As he mopped the hallway outside the boardroom, he noticed Emma walking toward him, her face pale despite her makeup. Their eyes met briefly, and he saw something he recognized all too well, the look of someone trapped with no good options. The board meeting began, and Daniel positioned himself near the door, ostensibly cleaning but listening intently. Through the door, he could hear Emma presenting the quarterly reports, her voice steady as she outlined growth projections and market expansions. She was following their orders, saying nothing about the discrepancies. When the meeting adjourned, board members filed out, some nodding approvingly at Emma. Richard lingered behind, placing a hand on her shoulder that looked friendly to observers but made Emma flinch. "Wise decision," he murmured before leaving. Daniel watched Emma return to her office, shoulders slumped in defeat. He made a decision then that could cost him everything: he would help her. That evening, as executives departed, Daniel knocked on Emma's door. "Maintenance," he called out. Emma looked up, surprised to see the janitor again. "I don't need anything, thank you." Daniel closed the door behind him. "Ms. Reeves, I believe you're in danger." Emma stiffened. "Excuse me? I overheard your phone call last night, and I've been watching the board members today. Their body language, the veiled threats, I recognize the signs." "You're overstepping," Emma said sharply, reaching for her phone. Before you call security, you should know I found these in the server room while changing air filters. Daniel placed a small flash drive on her desk. They're recording devices, not standard for any legitimate security system. Emma stared at the device, then at Daniel. Who are you? Just a janitor, he replied, then added, who used to work in intelligence. Ms. Reeves, whoever is behind the financial discrepancies you found is monitoring you. And they're serious about their threats. Emma's professional mask cracked. They threatened my daughter. Daniel nodded grimly. I have a son. I understand what that means. For the first time, Emma really looked at the man standing before her, not as a janitor, but as a person. His eyes held a quiet intensity, and he stood with the subtle readiness of someone trained for conflict. Why would you help me? She asked. Because my son is watching to see what kind of man I am, Daniel answered simply. And because no one should have to choose between truth and their child's safety. Over the next week, Emma and Daniel formed an unlikely alliance. During late nights when the office was empty, Daniel used his military training to sweep for additional surveillance devices while Emma compiled evidence of the embezzlement scheme. They discovered the corruption extended beyond Meridian to several other corporations, forming a network of financial fraud that had operated undetected for years. The 3 board members were merely mid-level players in a much larger operation. They'll never let you present this evidence, Daniel warned as they reviewed the files in Emma's office. They've already demonstrated they're willing to threaten your family. Emma rubbed her temples. I can't just ignore $300 million in stolen funds. The shareholders, the employees, they deserve better. Then we need leverage, Daniel said. Something that makes you more dangerous to them free than silenced. Their plan took shape gradually. Emma would prepare a comprehensive file of evidence to be automatically released to federal authorities and major news outlets if anything happened to her or Lily. But first, they needed to ensure Lily's safety. I have contacts, Daniel offered. People who can protect her without raising suspicions. Emma hesitated, then nodded. I trust you. The word surprised them both. As they worked together night after night, the barriers between CEO and janitor dissolved. Emma learned about Daniel's military career, his dishonorable discharge that he couldn't fight, and his struggle to rebuild his life for his son's sake. Daniel discovered the pressures Emma faced as a woman in leadership, her regrets about her failed marriage, and her deep love for her daughter. Why did you stay at Meridian? Emma asked one night as they sorted through financial records. With your background, you could have found better work. Daniel was quiet for a moment. After my wife died, Max needed stability. The night shift lets me be there when he gets home from school, help with homework, be a dad. Some things matter more than titles or paychecks. Emma felt the weight of his words. How many of Lily's moments had she missed chasing success? Their plan progressed methodically. Emma arranged for Lily to attend a special academic program, actually a secure location with Daniel's former military colleagues watching over her. Meanwhile, they gathered irrefutable evidence against the board members and traced the scheme to its source, a shadow investment group with connections to organized crime. The night before Emma planned to present her findings to federal authorities, Richard Harmon appeared in her office doorway. Working late again, Emma? He asked, his casual tone belied by the coldness in his eyes. Just finalizing the presentation for tomorrow's investor meeting, she replied evenly. Richard stepped inside, closing the door. You know, I've always admired your attention to detail. It's what makes you so dangerous. Emma maintained her composure. I'm just doing my job, Richard. Are you? He moved closer. Because our sources indicate you've been accessing restricted financial records. Records that don't concern you. As CEO, all company records concern me. Richard's smile disappeared. We've been patient, Emma. We gave you a chance to be reasonable. But you've made your choice. He reached inside his jacket, and Emma's blood froze as he withdrew a small handgun. "Such a tragedy," he said, almost conversationally. A stressed CEO, overwhelmed by the pressures of the job, takes her own life. The board will express their deepest condolences, of course. Emma's mind raced. The panic button under her desk was too far to reach without him noticing. Her phone was in her purse on the credenza behind him. "Richard, think about what you're doing," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "My death will raise questions. Not with the evidence we've prepared. The suicide note detailing your embezzlement and guilt is quite convincing." The door opened suddenly, and Daniel appeared with his cleaning cart. He paused, taking in the scene with a quick glance. "Sorry to interrupt," he mumbled, playing the part of the oblivious janitor. Richard concealed the gun against his leg. "Come back later," he snapped. "Just need to empty the trash, sir. Building policy before midnight." Daniel pushed his cart further into the office, positioning himself between Emma and Richard. Richard's irritation was palpable. "I said come back," in one fluid motion. Daniel grabbed Richard's wrist, twisting until the gun clattered to the floor. His other hand delivered a precise strike to Richard's throat, leaving him gasping for air as Daniel pinned him against the wall. "Ms. Reeves," Daniel said calmly, "would you mind calling security now?" The gun pressed against Emma's temple as tears streamed down her face. "Please," she whispered, "my daughter." Before she could finish, a shadow moved behind her captor. It was him, the quiet janitor she'd barely noticed for years, now moving with the precision of someone with a dangerous past. Their eyes met for just a second, and he mouthed two words that would change everything: "Don't talk." The aftermath unfolded rapidly. Security footage from Emma's office, which Daniel had secretly activated, captured Richard's confession and attempted murder. Federal agents arrested the implicated board members and began unraveling the larger criminal network. Emma stood before the newly appointed board 3 weeks later, presenting the full findings of the embezzlement scheme and her plan to restore the misappropriated funds. The company's stock had taken a hit when the scandal broke, but her transparent handling of the crisis had begun rebuilding investor confidence. After the meeting, she found Daniel cleaning windows in the hallway, back to his regular duties. "Mr. Carter," she called out. "Do you have a moment?" They stepped into an empty conference room, away from curious eyes. "The board has approved a special commendation for your actions," Emma said. "Along with a substantial reward." Daniel shook his head. "That's not necessary." "It is to me," Emma insisted. "You saved my life, helped protect my daughter, and risked everything to do what was right. I did what anyone should have done." Emma smiled. "But they didn't." "You did." She hesitated, then added, "I've been thinking about what you said, about being there for your son. I've missed too much of Lily's life chasing success." "It's never too late to change priorities," Daniel offered. "That's why I've decided to restructure my role here. Fewer 80-hour weeks, more delegation." Emma took a deep breath. "And I was wondering if you and Max might join Lily and me for dinner this weekend." "Nothing formal, just a thank you." Daniel's usually guarded expression softened. "We'd like that." 6 months later, Emma sat in the bleachers of a middle school gymnasium, cheering as Max's basketball team took the court. Beside her, Lily waved a homemade sign with Max's number, while Daniel explained the finer points of zone defense. Life had changed dramatically. Emma had restructured her work schedule, prioritizing quality time with Lily while still leading Meridian, now with greater emphasis on ethical practices and transparency. The company was thriving under this new approach, proving that success and integrity weren't mutually exclusive. Daniel had accepted a position as Meridian Security Director, his military background finally recognized as an asset rather than a liability. His dishonorable discharge was under review, with Emma using her connections to help clear his name. Most importantly, their unlikely friendship had blossomed into something deeper. Two single parents, each carrying their own wounds, finding unexpected healing in their shared journey. As Max scored a basket and looked to the stands with a grin, Emma felt Daniel's hand find hers. Some victories weren't measured in profit margins or stock prices, but in moments like these, hard-won peace after weathering the storm together. Worth it? Daniel asked quietly, noticing her reflective expression. Emma skew.